The moment Carter Wells strutted into Tuesday's strategy briefing with a smug grin and a laser pointer like he'd just discovered fire. I knew we were about to be steamrolled by a man who didn't know a circuit board from a coaster. "Welcome to the new vision for Redmark Technologies," he declared, arms wide like he was pitching a religion. "We're streamlining, centralizing, and modernizing legacy operations." By streamlining, he meant gutting staff. And by legacy, he meant people like me, Marlene Grant, 57 years old, 18 years in R&D, and the one who actually knew how half their systems worked. He never made eye contact when he said it. All legacy patents and development archives will be evaluated for ownership consolidation. Said it like he was talking about office supplies, not 14 years of my garage-built prototypes. I didn't react. Just sipped my coffee, black burnt, and from the gas station down the street and gave him the kind of look you give a spider walking into a glue trap. See, Carter never read the fine print. But paragraph 7 in my 2007 offer letter I had. It clearly stated that any intellectual property created outside company hours, off-site using personal tools, remained the property of the employee. Nobody had touched that clause in years. HR forgot about it. Legal never updated it. And I never reminded them, because while Carter was busy maximizing shareholder agility, I was building the core encryption architecture that ran half their platform at home after midnight with receipts, timestamps, and a notarized invention log sitting quietly in a fireproof lockbox in my closet. Carter thought he was buying the engine. What he didn't know was that I still owned the keys. Oh, and if you've stuck around this long and haven't subscribed yet, maybe hit that button. Keeps this story engine running, keeps us caffeinated, and keeps folks like Carter exactly where they belong. Out of power. I had footage, logs, journals. Hell, I even kept the receipt for the soldering iron I bought in 2009. So while Carter strutted around like he was Moses parting the IT department, I quietly took stock. I cleared out my backup server, erased the garage whiteboard. Every prototype, every biometric patch, every encryption module I ever coded, I lined it up against paragraph 7 like I was prepping for trial. And the wild part? Nobody noticed. Not legal, not HR, not even Carter's hand-picked crew of product visionaries with startup titles and coffee mugs that said things like, "Fail faster." They were too busy planning synergy summits to realize I was already 3 steps ahead. The signs came in slow, a teammate reassigned to innovation marketing, whatever that meant. Then came the 15-minute calendar, holds vague, quiet, and deadly. When mine hit for Tuesday at 3:15 p.m., I didn't panic. I texted Grace, my lawyer, 5'1" patience for nonsense, and once made a venture capitalist cry in mediation just by quoting his own shareholder letter. Dust off the archives I wrote. She replied instantly, "Coffee." She already knew what it meant. We'd reviewed paragraph 7 together, twice. She helped me build the LLC. She helped wall off the IP. And when I told her months ago that Carter gave me the same feeling you get when your smoke alarm chirps at 2 a.m., she told me to keep everything airtight. Carter called it a strategic reorganization, which is corporate speak for we let an algorithm fire the humans. By Monday night, the entire embedded systems, Team 12, brilliant engineers, and one guy still using a BlackBerry was gone. No warning, no transition docs, not even a stale box of donuts. Carter stood in the lobby like a game show host announcing grand prizes. "Sometimes you have to amputate to survive," he said, grinning like a man who's never built anything more complex than a gym playlist. My phone buzzed. Subject line only, meeting with CEO, no body text, no HR, just me and the blade. And I wasn't walking in scared. I was walking in ready. The man was lounging in a leather chair like he'd just sold off a failed startup and was looking for dessert. He gestured to the seat across from him like we were about to chat golf handicaps. "Marlene, thanks for coming in. I'll keep this brief. Your role, Director of Systems Architecture, is being sunset," he said like I was an outdated software plug-in. I tilted my head. "Sunset. We're realigning our roadmap. Need leaner teams, agile mindshare." I swear if he had said synergy, I might have stabbed my own leg with my pen. He slid a stapled packet across the table. Severance. Pre-filled, pre-dated. They'd already written my obituary. Then I saw it, page 2. Section D. Employee agrees to full transfer of all intellectual property rights, including pending or future filings, developed during or adjacent to tenure. Adjacent to tenure. That phrase, not standard. That's the legal equivalent of a fishing net. They were trying to scoop up my garage-built IP like it was company inventory. I didn't blink, didn't speak, just gave him the polite nod. The "you just made a terrible mistake" nod. Carter smiled like he'd just euthanized a stray cat and wanted applause. "If you're ready to sign, now we can expedite the package." "No need," I said calmly, folding the papers like a cocktail napkin. "I'll review it tonight." He leaned back triumphant. "No hard feelings, Marlene. You've been part of the story." I didn't stop walking as I replied, "Don't worry, I'm still writing it." At home, I kicked off my shoes. No tears, no yelling. Just one quiet finger of scotch and the familiar click of my file cabinet drawer. Still there. My original 2007 offer letter, paragraph 7 printed in fading ink on cream paper. I snapped a photo and sent it to Grace. 3 words, "It's go time." 45 seconds later, she responded. "Time to dust off the archives." I powered up my encrypted backup drive and typed in a password I hadn't used since Bush left office. A soft chime. Then the screen lit up firmware logs, journals prototypes. Everything I'd ever built, all of it mine, and they had no idea. Carter thought he'd fired a middle manager. What he'd actually done was pick a legal fight with the architect of his company's entire tech infrastructure. And I don't lose legal fights. They booked me into a beige conference room with flickering fluorescent lights and a dying fern in the corner that looked like it had been denied sunlight, water, and a purpose for at least 6 fiscal quarters. HR sent in Lisa, the kind of person who talks to you like you're a substitute teacher about to cry in front of 7th graders. She smiled tight and practiced. "Hi, Marlene. I know this isn't easy. Let's get through it together." "Okay?" She slid a glossy folder across the table. Redmark's logo embossed in silver like I was being handed a brochure for my own funeral. Inside a termination checklist, Cobra, info, a coupon for a resume coach, and a signature block with one bold phrase floating above it. Full release of all claims and assignment of past, present, and future intellectual property. They'd even highlighted it. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make her nervous. Then I laughed soft and curious like I'd just found a raccoon in the dishwasher. "Oh, wow," I said. "That's a lot. Wasn't expecting all the IP language. Is that new?" Lisa blinked, definitely not the reaction she rehearsed. "Oh, no, totally standard," she chirped. "Just legal housekeeping. Nothing to worry about. If you sign today, it avoids any delays with severance." I tilted my head like I was afraid to ask. "Mind if my lawyer gives it a look first?" She hesitated. "Well, it's a very straightforward document. That's usually what worries me," I said, still smiling. And then right on cue, Carter poked his smug head through the door. "Everything good in here?" he asked, pretending this wasn't his victory lap. "Just reviewing the paperwork," I said. "Lisa's been great." He smirked. "No hard feelings, right? Just business." I returned the smile, the kind that always comes right before a courtroom silence. "Of course. Just want to be sure I don't miss anything." Like the part where I own half their platform. I didn't say another word, just stared at the severance packet like it was a smudge on a glass door. After Carter left, Lisa gave me a tight-lipped smile. "We'll follow up tomorrow?" "Then sure," I said, standing. "I just need a night to breathe." What I really needed was already waiting in the bottom drawer of my file cabinet at home. Locked, double-latched, buried under old tech manuals and a broken external mouse. I turned the key and pulled out a manila folder labeled Independent Builds. Personal in faded Sharpie. Inside invention logs, with signatures dated screenshots of firmware and diagrams scribbled on everything from printer paper to grocery receipts. I'd written notes in the margins like someone leaving a confession. 2:44 a.m. Breakthrough on sync error. Must revisit voltage shift before next test. I reached deeper. Pulled out a cheap USB drive. No label except for one piece of white tape midnight builds. Every prototype, every compiled module Carter thought he owned was on that drive. Encrypted, backed up 3 times, stored in cloud drives under separate LLC names, all time-stamped and notarized. No panic, no noise, just a clean, razor-sharp stillness. If you want to see how Marlene's quiet power unfolds and discover more stories of justice served cold in the corporate world, make sure to subscribe, because the next chapter is just getting started. Let them think I was scared. Let them assume I was days too old to fight. They didn't know who I was. They thought I built Redmark's empire. Truth is, I just rented them the scaffolding. Grace didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. Just flipped through my original 2007 offer letter like it was some ancient map. Cross-legged on her office couch glasses, slipping coffee cooling beside her. I sat across from her, rereading paragraph 7 for the 1,000th time. Still binding, still untouched. Ownership of all inventions, developed off hours with personal equipment outside direct company assignment, remains solely with the employee. They never read it, but we did. Finally, Grace tapped the paper twice and said, "They're going to hate this." "This is beautiful," Grace murmured, eyes scanning the clause. "Understated," I said. She leaned in, glasses slipping halfway down her nose, eyes gleaming like she just found a forgotten statue with teeth. "Do they know?" I shook my head. "If legal ever saw it, they didn't clock it. They've been firing fast hiding blanket IP transfer language inside severance packets, hoping panic would do the heavy lifting." Grace gave a dry laugh. "Volume and chaos classic play. Clear the floor before anyone knows what hit them." I pulled the USB from my coat pocket and laid it on the table. "This is everything they'll wish they owned and everything they assumed I gave away for free." She raised an eyebrow. "Encrypted, dated, digitally notarized, mirrored across 3 private repositories." "Iceland?" she asked, smirking. "Of course. I like cold weather and clean jurisdictional lines." She pulled out a clean sheet of paper and began outlining the plan. "We'll acknowledge the severance documents, express intent to review, then file a formal IP objection tied to paragraph 7. No yelling," I added. "Whispers scare them more." I nodded. "You have the draft language tonight. I'll have it in 2 hours," she said, then paused. "You know they might pull the severance once they realize what's at stake. I'm counting on it. Shows coercion. Strengthens our claim." Grace glanced at the faded offer letter again, then closed the folder with a quiet thump. "It's right there. Not hidden, not clever. Just unread." "Carter thinks he's smart," I said, "but he's loud. Loud people always miss the quiet details." She walked to her filing cabinet and returned with a stack of boilerplate rebuttals. "They'll push back. Say your work is related. Claim proximity equals ownership." "That's why I never built at Redmark," I replied. "Never used their machines. Never synced to my Redmark email. Power bill on my garage. Different LLC." She paused, gave a small nod. "You weren't reacting. You were planning." "I wasn't planning for Carter," I said. "I was planning for anyone. I was planning for anyone," I said. Grace scribbled something on a yellow legal pad and slid it toward me. "Here's your email to HR. Keep it polite. Keep it vague. No threats." I scanned the draft. Calm acknowledgement. A simple request for review time. No fireworks, just quiet coiled pressure. Legal elegance. As I stood to leave, she looked up. "Marlene?" I turned. "Yeah, when we slide this across the table, don't blink. The power's already yours. We're just letting them notice." I stepped out into the crisp evening air folder under one arm, USB safe in my coat pocket, and a fire in my chest that wasn't rage or revenge. It was satisfaction. Because now came the moment they realized I hadn't been bluffing. Not then. Not now. Not ever. The conference room was colder than usual, not temperature-wise. Just that hollow corporate chill you get when people think they've already won. Carter sat at the head of the table wearing a too-tight blazer and the expression of a man who rehearsed in front of the mirror. His folder sat in front of him, like it contained my fate. Next to him was Lisa from HR giving me that careful, overly supportive look like she'd been cast as my emotional handler. And across from me, Grace, calm as always, pearl earrings, her own pen, a printed copy of my offer letter, and a steaming thermos of coffee like it had legal intent. Carter cleared his throat. "Marlene, thanks for coming in. We're formally concluding your employment effective immediately." He flipped open his folder. "Your contributions have been noted. We're offering a generous severance. Standard release of IP ownership." He smiled like he expected applause. I didn't blink, didn't move, just folded my hands and turned to Grace. "Would you?" She nodded once, reached into her bag, and placed our folder on the table like it was a loaded weapon. Grace opened our folder and pulled out a crisp, stapled document. At the top, in bold intellectual property rights, employee claim exemption notice. Without a word, she slid it across the table, positioning it neatly in front of Carter. He glanced at it, then up at me, then back down. Lisa shifted awkwardly beside him. Carter's confidence wavered. "What is this?" Grace answered evenly. "Please note that Marlene Grant's original employment agreement includes a carve-out clause for independently developed intellectual property." His eyes narrowed. "What paragraph 7?" she repeated, unfazed. "Signed in 2007, never amended, still binding." She continued calm and precise. "It states that any IP created off-site off-hours without the use of company resources remains the sole property of the employee." Carter opened his mouth to argue, but Grace was ready. "We've provided full documentation, time logs, device IDs, third-party verification, and notarized development journals. Every system Marlene developed under that clause is listed and protected." Lisa leaned in whispering. Carter didn't respond. I could see it the moment realization hit. He hadn't come for negotiation. He'd come expecting compliance. Grace kept going. "We're also notifying you that any attempt to use license or alter this IP without renegotiated terms will trigger a cease and desist. Retroactively," I added softly. Carter blinked. Twice. He muttered, "That clause won't hold." "It's too broad." "It's not," Grace replied. "It's specific, and it's legally tested. Would you like us to review the case law?" With you, Lisa looked pale. Her eyes had already drifted to my offer letter, open to the right page. I leaned back, chair creaking just enough. "Carter," I said gently, "you thought you were buying the blueprints, but you were just leasing the walls." He shoved back from the table and stood rifling through his folder. "We'll review this with counsel." Grace didn't flinch. "We'll wait. In writing. And suspend all product use until resolved." Carter didn't say a word. He just marched out like someone had yanked the backbone right out of his ego. Lisa gathered the unsigned severance forms, hands shaking. Grace packed her things. I slid my chair back, straightened my blazer, and stood. For the first time in that sterile building, I felt warm. Not because I'd humiliated Carter, he'd done that to himself. I just read what was there the whole time. They didn't even wait till the end of the day. By 4:17 p.m., legal was summoned. I imagined the panic-filled PowerPoint acronyms, arrows, and one big question scrawled in red marker. Can she do that, spoiler? Yes, I already had. The next morning, Lisa sent a clarification request disguised as policy. It read like 3 interns had drafted it over speakerphone with ChatGPT. Grace forwarded it to me, subject line, sloppy. I didn't respond. Grace did with a PDF of my IP documentation, organized by creation date device, serial number GPS logs, and hash verifications. No commentary, just cold facts, like throwing a frozen salmon on the table and daring them to say it's not fish. Then came the calls. First, Evan, one of the engineers I mentored when he thought version control was saving files twice. He sounded hesitant. "Hey, Marlene," he said casually. "Do you remember when we started on biometric sync? I can't find the original prototype logs." "Check the metadata," I replied flatly and hung up. Then Clara called. She never calls. Allergic to conflict, she once broke out in hives over a Slack message. "Marlene?" She whispered, was the Q2 firmware build finalized internally or partially external? Check the metadata, I said. Click. Last was Jules' smart slippery. Carter's unofficial shadow, the kind who took credit but never built anything. Hey, superstar, he started. Don't, I interrupted. He laughed like old friends sharing a beer instead of facing a legal storm. Okay. Hypothetically, if IP filings were changed to retroactively include team contributions, check the metadata, I said. He sighed like I was unreasonable. Come on, Marlene. You're not really going to freeze the entire product line over a clause no one's enforced since the Obama administration. Are you? I'm not freezing anything, I replied. I'm just finally owning it. Click. That afternoon, signs of full-blown corporate panic hit. Engineering access was partially suspended across 3 departments. A leaked memo from legal demanded an immediate review of all patent ownership predating the acquisition. Slack channels exploded with confused emojis and frantic speculation. Someone anonymously forwarded me screenshots. In one, Carter wrote, "We'll fight it. She's bluffing. Legal says the case is weak." Grace read that and didn't even smirk. "He's whistling past the graveyard," she said. Bluster only buys time, not clarity or ownership. The next day, legal sent a follow-up dressed up as a negotiation attempt, but clearly trying to stall, intimidate, and bait me into overplaying. We understand there may be confusion about development origins of certain IP assets. Grace replied, no confusion. Paragraph 7 is clear. Ownership depends on documented development, not company belief. She attached notarized logs and device histories for all disputed assets. We're open to licensing talks, not surrender. It was legal chess in 4-move checkmate form. Then came a personal email from Carter, no CC's subject line, "Let's be adults." Body read, "Like a man watching his empire slip away, Marlene. I think this has gone too far. We both know your contributions. We prefer to avoid litigation and find common ground." I didn't reply. Grace did. "Dear Mr. Wells, Ms. Grant has conducted herself professionally and documented everything. Our position remains unchanged." The silence that followed was the loudest sound of all. Carter realized too late that firing me didn't just lose him. An employee, it unleashed the contingency plan. By Monday, denial turned to panic. The first crack, a midnight email from one of Carter's acquisition partners, Devin Spence was the smarmiest man to ever sign a 7-figure check while wearing suede loafers without socks. He'd CC'd a dozen people, but accidentally blind copied me instead of Grace. A gift. Subject line. Urgent IP status, query, Grant Systems. The message I've reviewed the filings. Told us the IP was clean. It's not. These patents are unassignable. The clause is legit. She owns them. You didn't disclose this during due diligence. If unresolved, the entire agreement could be in breach. That email landed like a dirty bomb. By sunrise, the back channels lit up. Slack grapevines, investor forums, and hush-hush Discord servers for tech angels who think NDAs are foreplay. 2 separate multi-million-dollar licensing deals tied to biometric integration and cloud sync modules went from imminent to paused pending legal clarity. One pulled out completely citing IP instability. I didn't celebrate. I made pancakes barefoot in my kitchen, listening to the morning news replay the Redmark press release. We remain confident in the integrity of our IP portfolio. We have no idea what's happening. Grace called mid-morning. Carter tried arbitration. I flipped a pancake. Let me guess. He doesn't know what arbitration is. He thinks it means yelling in a room until someone picks a winner. She laughed. Sounds like how he runs board meetings. I filed the cease and desist. Certified delivery, time-stamped, included a 48-page appendix, detailed bill logs, and a statement of ownership. Sent copies to their 2 largest institutional investors. I raised an eyebrow. They deserved clarity, Grace said. I pointed to the clause their legal team missed, paragraph 7. Bolded, underlined, annotated with 6 case precedents. You're spoiling me, I said. No, I'm finishing him, she replied. The next day, a former colleague called, still inside, still loyal. Held an emergency board call, she said. Investors demanded an audit of Carter's deal history. People were shouting. What did he say? I asked. Blamed HR. Of course he did, Grace whispered. He doesn't look good. Like physically pale, sweaty. Snapping at Clara in front of 3 VPs. Saying, you sucker punched me with a footnote. I didn't laugh, not because it wasn't funny, but because it was perfect. Across the street in my new temporary office, Hard Applied Systems, LLC, I pulled up the IP dashboard Grace built. All green, all mine. Status owned, active. Licensed only with my written approval. Every day, Carter's empire hemorrhaged a little more. Partners demanded reassurance. Clients wanted proof. The hardware worked, but the heart of the system. My software encryption biometric sync was locked down in legal Kevlar, with my name stitched inside. They couldn't patch it, couldn't clone it. Every workaround would trigger another violation. They'd built a skyscraper on land they didn't own. And now the foundation was speaking. I didn't gloat, didn't tweet, didn't leak a whisper. I just watched. Like a spectator in the nosebleeds, calm remote, silent, waiting for the show to tear itself apart. The takedown didn't come with sirens, but silence. On Thursday morning, Redmark's flagship product, PulseVault, the star of investor decks, and why Carter got his CEO title, vanished from every retail platform, pulled from shelves. Commerce links redirected to a sterile message, temporarily unavailable due to licensing review. No warning, no workaround. A sudden gaping hole in revenue. Corporate clients furious, demanding refunds. One government contractor sent a letter citing material breach of supplier trust. Another demanded $9, $7 million plus interest. Carter couldn't stall anymore. Cornered ego bigger than his data center, but leveraged like a paper napkin, he reached out himself. Grace forwarded me his email. Subject, clown face. Marlene, let's be adults. Offering a generous consulting arrangement. Quiet fix, minimal noise. You'd be compensated fairly and help us avoid a PR mess. Nobody wins in a drawn-out legal fight. Name your rate. Am I rate? I stared at that sentence long enough to feel insulted on behalf of the English language. Carter still thought this was about money, that I was some disgruntled engineer angling for a paycheck. He believed tossing a few zeros would bring me limping back with a smile and a signed NDA. So I sent Grace my terms, and she delivered them like a guillotine. Hard Applied Systems LLC would offer a licensing agreement for the disputed patents. Triple market value. Non-transferable. Exclusive term, 6 months mandatory renegotiation. I kept all derivative rights, adaptation, integration, modification. Redmark would be contractually forbidden from altering source code or sublicensing without my consent. Every deployment required written approval from my office. And Carter's name? Completely removed from all patent footnotes and internal attributions retroactively. Grace sent the package as a PDF named Mutually Beneficial Reality Check. The next morning, the board met 6 directors, 3 lawyers, and a financial consultant flown in from New York whispering total collapse risk. Carter tried to speak, spun words about interim compromise and reputational capital. The chairman cut him off. He lied about ownership. We're lucky she's even offering a deal. That afternoon, Carter was removed from all public-facing communications. Internal memos marked him on leave pending review. By Friday, he was a ghost. Access revoked. Parking spot reassigned. His name scrubbed from the org chart like bad code. Grace called. They're ready to sign. I paused. What do you want? Full control, I said. Nothing moves without my green light. Understood. Grace added a clause. Any attempt to replicate core modules without consent triggers full revocation. They signed. No choice. That weekend, I sat in my office watching the shell of the company I'd fueled for 14 years. Every login, every API call, every heartbeat ran through my system. They didn't own a breath without me. I wanted clarity, not revenge. For the first time, it had my name. Alone. The screenshot of that pop-up hit Twitter 47 seconds later, posted by a junior dev who hadn't signed a gag order yet. Investors saw it. Clients saw it. Reporters saw it. And Carter. He was in a boardroom 3 floors down, still clinging to the fantasy that this would all settle quietly, that they could patch holes in the hull while denying the water was rising. A tech blog broke the story before lunch. Redmark locks own product after IP licensing deal goes sour. Somewhere in that glass tower, I imagine Carter's face went pale, skim milk pale. That tight-jawed look he got when things didn't go his way, which hadn't happened often. He called twice. Grace answered once. Licensing inquiries are now handled exclusively by hard-applied systems, she said, voice drier than Nevada's desert. We require a written request. Processing takes 2 to 3 business days. Then she hung up. I stood by the window mug in hand, watching them squirm behind polarized glass. Patents were mine. The leverage was mine. The story was mine again. I took a sip of Colombian coffee brewed in a French press older than Carter's entire career. Grace reviewed the final notarized documents on her tablet. Remind them, I said softly. Satisfied, drifting toward peace. Always read the fine print. She nodded. Across the street, Carter stood at the boardroom window, staring at us like a man watching his house burn with the deed in someone else's name. His empire, his power, his future, built on someone else's garage floor, and that someone had just changed the locks. Thanks for joining the Fun Office Survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flipping drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.